And good morning, everyone. Brand new edition of Sports Medicine Weekly. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm Steve Kashul, joined by Dr. Chuck Bush-Joseph, filling in this week for Dr. Brian Cole. Dr. Chuck Bush-Joseph is a long-time head team physician with the Chicago White Sox, 15 years plus. Also, one of the team physicians right now with the Chicago Bulls. He's a sports medicine specialist, orthopedic surgeon from Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Dr. Chuck, thanks so much for joining us here on Sports Medicine Weekly.
Steve, always happy to get up early and talk to you on Saturdays.
I appreciate it. Well, let's talk to kick this show off, Doc, about NBA load management. You know, we're early in the NBA season. Teams trying to keep their best players in top shape for the playoffs. I guess that's what it's all about these days. So they're sitting players for games for rest, typically pre-planned for back-to-back games. A lot of their veteran guys, they don't want them to play, back-to-backs day after day. And I know the NBA didn't like the word rest, so they started using this term load management, right?
Yeah, that's a new term that's hit the NBA lexicon. I think we're all going to be used to it going forward.
All right, so what does it mean? And I know it was popularized by Kawhi Leonard recently of the Clippers, who sat out 2 games of the first 8 he played this season. Was he hurt, or, was it a situation where Doc Rivers, their head coach, said, I'm not playing this guy in back-to-back games?
Steve, we see it in these high-level players, these flagship players like Kawhi Leonard or LeBron James. You got to remember the NBA season's 9 months. And these top-notch players who are going to be playing well through in the playoffs all the way into the NBA Finals, these guys are going to be playing up to 120 games. And, NBA players who have miles on them, and it's the duty of the coach to have the team best prepared for when the time matters the most.
Yep.
And so certainly that's later in the season during the playoff run, and certainly during the playoffs and the finals. And we would all agree that Kawhi Leonard was probably the best player on the planet during the NBA playoffs last season, and culminating in an NBA championship. But if you think about the year before that, Kawhi had knee problems and really led to him missing significant time with the San Antonio Spurs. And so I think that we just want to prevent these injuries. So I see it as something that's actually very common and important. It's difficult, for the team and the team management because, we're dealing with fans who buy tickets and national TV games. But if I'm a coach and I'm the head athletic trainer for that particular team, I've got to have my best players ready at the best time. And so certainly that's sometimes rest. And we've used that term before on this show many times, the term active rest, where we have players recovering from injuries. We want to do light impact aerobic things, but not challenge them and put too much load on, say, their knees or their shoulders or their back, if that's a vulnerable area for them.
Have you seen that in baseball as well?
In my years of baseball, it's very common. And, in baseball, it was, and I could say that I'm aware of many situations where a player went on the DL, where it was quite active. A player would miss 7 to 10 to 15 games, either mid-season or late season, recovering for really what we would say is an attritional or overuse injury, as opposed to an acute injury where, something was sprained or torn or broken. And really in that situation back then, and even it goes on today to some degree, we're doing load management on our best players because we want to make sure they're ready at the most important time.
Absolutely. Pitchers, Again,
the same thing, Steve. If you think about years ago, back in the Fergie Jenkins days, where Mickey Lolich or old time players, they pitched 300 innings all
Gibson,
the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whereas nowadays, our modern pitchers, if they hit 200 innings, we're extremely satisfied, and they're making lots of money. They're signing very big contracts. So, our young pitchers, who are transitioning their first or second year in the big leagues, if we get them to 120, 140 innings, we're going to slow down on them. And even some of the prize pitchers on both sides of town, you've seen they've been either slowed down or shut down late in the season because, again, this is load management.
We always hear about the dead arm after spring training, right? Or maybe towards the end of spring training. You can also get that mid-season, right?
Yeah, mid-season. I would be an advocate, for really mid-season load management, but you can't put somebody on the DL in baseball for load management. In basketball, it's usually the knees. I mean, basketball players, they're running up and down the court hundreds of times per game. heavy impact loads and players who've got some wear and tear and miles on them. You've got to protect them.
Back to the NBA. The NBA fined the Clippers $50,000 for statements made to the media, including by head coach Doc Rivers. They were inconsistent with Kawhi Leonard's health status. Now, Kawhi Leonard was quoted as saying this, it's just disappointing. It feels like they want players to play even if they're not ready. I don't read into it. I have to do what will make me healthy and help the team be successful. That's me being able to play basketball games for us. So, I think the players are aware of this too, right? As I said, when the Lakers got both Anthony Davis and LeBron James now on the same team, I said, they're going to be lucky to get 65 games out of both these guys in the regular season.
Steve, I would agree, but I will defend the league on this, and certainly this is the same for both Major League Baseball, the NFL, the National Hockey League, and the NBA. They treat those injury lists as sacrosanct. Those have to be gospel. And so, I think as listeners or fans, what's the big deal? Whether it's a day or two or whether we make up a diagnosis, the league treats that as sacrosanct. And they think that, if clubs are not providing accurate information, they're violating their operating agreement. So I'm not that surprised from the sense that the league came down relatively hard on this prospect. But I think as fans, we still see there's reason for wiggle room on this.